This is the Cyversity Engage's Impact Interview Series. We're really blessed today to have our incoming chair. I got the right verbiage. I had to go to AI to find out how's short? Chairperson, chairwoman. It's Chair Dave. So our chair, and so I'm so happy to be here with her. She's going to be joined soon by Julian Waits, who's the current chairman of the board. See, I know he's chairman of the board of Cyversity, and so we'll be talking today about all things strategic about Cyversity going into the future. But I usually go through a couple of things, and so I wanted to just progress through these slides, and of course it's not moving when I ask it to. There you go. So I'm trying to get it to move, but it's not moving. Back office, you can help me move these slides if you want to. I go into the next slide and show everyone can see you. Hey, I'll talk it through. I think that's probably the best thing to do. So Cyversity is a national 501c3 organization that has a mission of advocating for women and minorities and veterans. And we've done that since the founding of the organization in 2014. It's founded by a couple of folks who were at RSA who saw that there was a need for representation for women and minorities, and it wasn't being met. So they decided to start this organization. The whole idea of diversity for Cyversity, and the reason why it matters is because diversity of thought, diversity of gender, diversity of perspective, diversity of culture, diversity of many kinds, of like most kinds, also adds to the ability and the capability of practitioners to defend against bad actors. Cyversity is a membership organization, and most individuals who join Cyversity, not all, students and entry-level folks and mid-level folks and professionals, like some of the folks we'll be speaking to today, they join the organization, and since it's a membership organization, they invest in themselves. Professionals invest $100 a year, and students invest $20 a year to help educate and broaden their perspectives. There's quite a few resources. There's chapters, there's events, there's networking events, there's on-demand learning, there's mentorship, which is a huge part of Cyversity. And so those are, and many other resources are available through Cyversity to our membership. I would have a little screen up here, but of course I can't advance my slides, so there you go. Today we're going to be talking to the incoming chair for Cyversity. Her name is Sharon Burgess. She's the Senior Vice President of BCD Travel. And then she's joined by our current chairman of the board, Julian S. Waits Sr., who is he's many things, and so we're glad to have both of them. I'll say this one thing: this interview is going to be followed January 1st, because we're off in December. Every year we take December off. But January 1st is going to be followed by MK Palmore, who is the incoming president for Cyversity. So there's some great things, some exciting things, some powerful things that are going to be going on at Cyversity, and so we're here to have that discussion. I'm going to get rid of this screen that isn't working. Move that from the stage. And there we are with our two guests. Sharon and Julian, boy, it is a distinct pleasure to have both of you here. This is great for us, for our Impact Interview Series. And we've had some serious luminaries, security luminaries here from many industries, insurance, sports, and what have you. But having you both here during this time of transition is really historic and really great. I've written in a couple of social media posts that this conversation feels like the proverbial passing of the torch, if you will, from the founders to the next generation of leaders. And so I'm just wondering if either of you are feeling that same sense of history. If you don't mind, Sharon, I'm going to ask Julian to take that first, and then because you'll round it out, I'm sure.
Hopefully you guys can hear me okay, and I apologize that I'm in an airport lounge. Can you hear me?
We can hear you well. Thank you.
Yeah, so emotionally, I can't tell you the amount of tears that I've shed over this after being chairman now for, I think, 8 years. And it's calling it passing the torch is a bit of a stretch. Meaning Sharon's been here on the ground, running hard for quite some time, and I never really wanted to take an operational role anyway. So she's always been like my extension, making things happen within Cyversity. But yeah, there's a huge, like wow. It's one side of it. It's a little bit of a burden going, but the big side of it is wow. I'm getting old and my role is changing. But at least I'm giving it to someone who definitely did a better job than what I did.
Yes. Great response. Thanks very much, Sharon. Your take as well, please.
Yeah, I mean, this it's a really big deal to have this opportunity. I think the founders that getting to know each one of them, for them, this will be the first time that they are not on the Cyversity board, and the fact that number one, they had the insight to say it's okay for us to evolve the organization, but also to kind of entrust me also with MK to run the organization and to move it into a different direction. And I think that is kind of a testament to what we're trying to do as an organization, and the type of effect that we're going to have within the industry is to evolve and to make room for difference. And so, kudos to you, Julian, for sure for holding the helm. I know it hasn't been easy, but those are big shoes to fill, and I'm really excited to get in there.
Perfect. Sharon, whenever I get an opportunity to speak with you, I get the sense that you are absolutely living and experiencing life through what you call your self-described superpowers.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everyone knows you. This whole interview was about Meet the Chair. So we'd love to meet the chair and hear a little bit more about you, but can you share a little bit about your background with the audience, about yourself, your origins, your family, and let's hear about those superpowers, if you will, too.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, I guess a little bit about me. I am the daughter of two really amazing parents. One was a professor, and the other was a truck driver. And so, I moved around a lot as a kid. So, I think that has helped me you have to get in there and adapt quickly as you move schools. We moved every 3 or 5 years or so, and I've moved all over kind of the U.S., mainly on the East Coast side. From an academic background, I have an odd background. If anybody checks me out on LinkedIn, with an undergraduate degree in Spanish with a double minor in biology and religious studies. So I'm interested in, kind of culture and people, and just kind of sitting and understanding about traditions and, just how the world works. Also have an advanced degree. I have a master's degree in international affairs with a focus on international political security. So my program was primarily focused on war and how war is waged and how you get out of war and why people go into war. And while it's seemingly not related to cybersecurity, we really are fighting a war as security practitioners. You can take down governments and economies and companies from your computer without leaving your house now, instead of sending nuclear weapons and the like. And so it's very much related. And so, so academically, I have a varied background, but my primary goal was I thought I wanted to be a linguist at one point. So I studied a lot of different kind of language. My goal was always to just be able to talk to people in whatever language that is. And so understanding my superpower of being able to be more relational with people, also having a pretty global experience and perspective. And I really believe that security as a professional is about the people. So, people, and you see kind of the leading trends as professionals that social engineering is one of the most effective ways to compromise an environment. And that's related to people more than it is about, how you can brute force any kind of environment. So, that's a little bit of my background. And then my superpower is, I guess it's evolved really. But my superpower is I'm pretty strategic. I like to think of things down the street and around the corner and what they mean for organizations, for different functions that I'm involved in, and being able to break that down programmatically. I like to look at all the bits and bytes of things and then figure out what's the why. And so I try to use that here. I think also the other part of my superpower, which is maybe it's a kind of a knock, is I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. There was a point in time where I tried to get into the cybersecurity career, and with my kind of academic background, I was told it wasn't for me, or I wasn't invited in. And so it's interesting that I made my way into this space anyway, starting in compliance and moving, from there, sit as a current operational CISO for BCD, as David, as you mentioned. But it's important to me, and part of my mission and how it aligns here at Cyversity is to make way for people who have talent and skills to offer into the industry, even if they don't have a computer science degree or they don't start off as having a CISSP, that there is room for all kinds of difference, all kinds of perspective within the space. And we should do a better job as practitioners and as an industry opening our arms to that. And so that's a little bit of my own background, but that's what helps fuel me in this space and why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing.
Amazing. So many, I've heard so many correlating statements there. Chip on your shoulder, access to this this particular industry because it comes in different levels. We don't all approach from the same perspective. Such an alignment there that in thought process that I heard. So Julian, we've known you for quite some time, and we've known you and I have the same background as being PKs, being spiritual leaders, the children of spiritual leaders. And then you entered this vocation and you entered that vocation, became a Baptist minister, and then you sort of transitioned over to the serial entrepreneur and investor side of you. What's the one thing that we don't know about you? What is that thing that we just don't know? What's that idea thing that we don't know?
Well, so kind of like Sharon's background, other than being a Baptist minister, which didn't last too long, they kicked me out. Because I'm the opposite of her. Sharon loves people. I love God, and I believe that God's greatest creation is people, but people can be very frustrated. But I was also a jazz performance major. I still play saxophone in church every Sunday.
Excellent.
Wow.
I'm going to share some of my son's music with you one day. You'll let me know what you think about it. Especially since I used to put him to bed. I used to put my sons to bed. I've got 4 sons. I used to put him to bed on Miles Davis, Earl Garland, Thelonious Monk, which is one of my favorites. But let me not digress. Dating myself.
And we would digress.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to get into this whole idea of the board transition. As Sharon was mentioning, boy, I got a problem with that one. Sharon was mentioning that this is a transition, and you, Julian, said she's been on the ground with you for a while. So I know strategically, I'm assuming, right? I don't know anything. Strategically, the board chair transition can be a complicated process sometimes. I've seen it up close and personal and have experienced it myself. How is this handled? This handoff, if you will, is it being handled? Is it a simple just, dump and transfer and I'm out the door, or is there a transfer period, transfer time? How's this work?
So Sharon's been the vice chairman now for a year. And the whole reason we set it up, like anything that you want to operate and operate well, it was a year-long succession plan. Now, again, in her case, because I don't do much and she does a lot, I don't know how much succession there was, other than in the areas of culture, fit, and staying, tied to our mission. Those are the things that are important to me, to make sure our first goal is always to help those people who are unrepresented and coming into the field of cybersecurity. And, Sharon, you heard everything she had to say. She's just an awesome, dynamic person, and she embodies it. And her experience coming into the industry, even more so, makes her the perfect candidate to do this, because so many of us, whether it's because you're a girl and you shouldn't be in the STEM-related thing, or because you're a Black guy who didn't come from this industry, or anybody who didn't come from this industry, there's always these people who will come up and try and tear you down and block you. And so the mission we have is to find those people, help them become aware of this, and then propel them in an area where they're the next leaders in cybersecurity. And we have many examples of that. Sharing is an embodiment of that. And so, my father used to say something all the time. He didn't create it, but I live by it. You can't see it you can't be it unless you can see it. Seeing sharing allows many to aspire to things that they never thought they'd be able to do before. And that's what we need for Cyversity.
Great, thanks very much. Sharon, historically, leadership changes, there's either a continuance of the current operating model, or there's a total, sometimes that new broom sweeps clean. And then with that, there's a transition, sort of a transition of operating methodology, if you will. Strategically, what does it look like for Cyversity's future? Just give us a broad brush, if you will.
Yeah. So, I think there's a couple of things. One is that we've actually been in the mode of evolving Cyversity for a couple of years. So prior to kind of being part of this, the role of being vice chair, I've actually been on the board for a couple of years. And so was part of that transition from ICMCP. I know that was a mouthful for some, and then that transition into Cyversity, and that branding and that change. I think a couple of things that we'll see as hallmarks for our organization is that we want to always honor our commitments. We're working with big companies and organizations who believe in the mission. And historically, we haven't always been able to execute. We went through COVID and had to change our model, right? So we went from an in-person model to how do we get into virtual models and modalities for our members. And so we've had to pivot. And so we want to be able to continue to pivot, be mindful of the type of execution that we want to have, and know that when you partner with Cyversity, that great things are going to happen. We are issuing in a new board. We can talk a little bit about that later as well. And just with some awesome skills and capabilities. And so there's the spirit of ICMCP is embedded into Cyversity, the love and the passion the founders had for the mission and what we need to do. But we are, superpowering the operating model with back office and a lot more support to do the mission in a grander way. And so I think those are some of the changes, but the spirit and the love by which the organization was built, that will continue to live on.
Sure. I had an opportunity to sit in one of the meetings at the conference, and we'll talk about conferencing going forward as well. I had an opportunity to sit in one of the meetings and heard about this sort of new model, if you will, starting with the execution of the infusing of new board members, financial stability, operational stability model, revising our partner strategy, strategic alliance partners, educational roadmap, members and community sponsored things of that nature. Can you give our audience, and especially those that may not know the inner workings? I know you're at the strategic level, and there's some operational things down that you cascade down to, or over to. But can you give us just some background about those things that I just mentioned? Board members, operational model, and alliances, strategic alliances, what have you.
Yeah, sure. Perhaps maybe I can start with the overall vision of what we see with Cyversity. And as an organization, we want to be the go-to organization for diversity in cyber. Whenever you think about how do I go about diversifying my workforce or my organization in the cybersecurity space, we want to be the first organization to be top of mind and to be sought after. There's a couple of other points of our vision is that we want to be able to affect all parts of the cybersecurity industry. I think there's a big push for people to get into training, which is great. There's training providers and entities that have been providing training for all people to come into security is wonderful. But we also want to be able to affect the sales teams, the security engineers that are part of those sales teams. And that's really important to me, again, as a CISO, and I see the sales teams that approach me rarely have diversity in those sales teams. That's really significant. We also want to be able to support entrepreneurship and diversity in those who are starting, going down their journey of entrepreneurship. Very similar, and a love for Julian as an entrepreneur, who are in startups. We want to support that. We also want to affect those who are doing recruiting, have diversity and perspective on diversity there as well. We want to affect all parts of the industry, not just those who are working for companies. We also want to continue the kind of love and the relationship that our founders had, to be relational at scale. And what that means for us is that when you come to our conference, which we just had, and you meet someone and they meet someone else and they say, hey, I know somebody who you should talk to. Being able to connect individuals, be able to connect to opportunities. We know that our ability to affect diversity in this space isn't going to be whether or not we can submit a resume or a job application in a portal that has 1,000. How do we get around some of those recruiters? Hey, I know someone at this company that can, have a conversation or help with those opportunities. We want to be relational there. And then lastly, the last part of our vision is that we want to be a part of the journey, or part of that lifespan of security practitioners for the entirety of their time in the industry. We are looking at partnerships within the K through 12 space, because again, knowing that young girls get discouraged from pursuing STEM careers in middle school, when we're looking to hire women into cybersecurity after college, they're not there because we lost them 10 years prior. And so we really have to be intentional about fueling that pipeline and having a membership. Imagine having a network when you're in high school of people who are pursuing cybersecurity as a career. And then even to those people, even to on the further end of the spectrum with sitting CISOs and what happens after becoming a CISO. I think people think that that's like the end of it. After a CISO, you just kind of die and go off into the corner. Well, that's not true. And so how do we help those transition into advisory, into board positions, into their own consulting, and for them to also be able to give back, but also to pour into them as well. We want to be a part of that relationship and that journey the entirety of the time. You are a Cyversity member, and we welcome our arms to that.
Sure. And you see these mechanisms or these ideals as being wins for Cyversity. And are those wins, do they come about because we see more folks like us in these positions? What's a real win? I mean, what are we calling a real win for us?
Yeah, I think there's just multiple levels that we have to be able to affect in order to achieve our mission of diversifying the industry. So if you think about it, we have to be able to educate those who are in existing positions to want to hire people who are upcoming to diversify, the people who are the diverse professionals that are in the positions of being able to hire. We need to let them know that we're here and that we want to help partner. And for those who are looking to be allies or who are allies, but they don't know where to start, we want to be there as well. And so we have to be able to attack this in multiple ways. And that actually leads to some of the strategic components that we're looking to affect, where we're doing training, we're promoting the industry and saying cybersecurity can be for you, not just, if you have a computer science degree and you love capture the flag. There are some people who do that and who love it. They're needed, but there's need for others as well. And so being able to attack this in multiple ways from multiple angles is kind of the design for what makes us different and how we're evolving the organization as a whole.
And Sharon, if I could add, uh, at the end of the day, what we're trying to eliminate is ignorance and poverty, right? The biggest problem that we suffer in underrepresented communities, not just the Black community, is the fact that people aren't ignorant of the opportunity that's available to them. And, it's a bad thing when a girl in middle school is told that if you're not good at math, or you can't do anything with computers. Or when I was in high school, I have ADHD, loved English literature, yet my English literature teacher told me, hey, you're going to grow up never to be anything, because she didn't understand the way my mind worked. And so cybersecurity is a place where there's so much opportunity. As I say all the time, being a guy in a mixed marriage with a white son, this industry is dominated by white males, yet we still have over 500,000 openings in the United States. There's obviously not enough white dudes to go around, and we need to bring more people to the party. That's what Cyversity is doing. And Sharon and MK and the others have been doing an exemplary job over the last year, demonstrating to us old founders how if we get out of the way and let them do what they need to do, the organization can scale and scale positively for all the people that we're trying to help.
I think it's great when you have founders that have that forward-thinking vision.
You want to mute, David.
And I'm just talking like everything is okay. But I was saying that I think it's awesome and great that when you have founders, if you allow me the luxury of just saying something personal, founders on a Black organization. I've been on organizations that have been manned by founders that are Black, and we overstay our welcome sometimes, right? We stay there too long, and then we get a little stale and stagnant, and the organization suffers for that. But I think it's great that Julian and Devin and Larry, and Eric and Carlos have seen fit to move the torch or move the organization to its next level. Julian, I mean, I'm sure that there's.
Can I add to that for a second? Because I want to piggyback on it. That yes, the founders are Black, and I think it's amazing what has been accomplished, and also what we're trying to do with Cyversity. And our name is what we're trying to do. It's diversify. So I think historically there's been this perspective that Cyversity is just for Black people, and that's not true. Now our membership is now diversifying. We have different demographics that are being brought in, and we want to open our arms. There are so many people who are unseen, who are security practitioners and capable and competent. And that's what I think is important that we highlight. It's like when we go historically where we would be on conferences and it would be, well, let's have a diversity panel. We don't want to just be the diversity panel. We want to be able to show diversity in the practice. So if you have someone who is amazing at mergers and acquisitions and dealing with the security there, and they happen to be of a different group that is not normally seen on the scene, that's what we want to continue to promote. And so I think that our founders have done a good job of saying, well, there's more underrepresented groups that need to have this platform in this space. And that's what we're doing at Cyversity, is making room for more groups, for more difference, again, to drive that diversity into the industry.
Perfect statement. Thank you for bringing that, illustrating that, and demonstrating that. Julian, it looks like, what lessons learned have you been able to share with Sharon? What advice, what counsel have you shared with Sharon and our chair about this organization and this sort of transition, if you will?
So I wouldn't couch it as advice, but I would say lessons. So the toughest problem with running any organization where most of the people, in our case, 99.9% of the people are volunteers, is dealing with people and dealing with their emotions. One of the reasons I'm no longer a minister is, hey, Brother Wade, Pastor Wade, could you please pray with me? They tell me what the situation is, and I'm like, but you don't want to change. You want me to make you feel better, but you're going to go back and do the exact same thing all over again. And so the biggest issue that we have to encounter is a lot of times, and it's unfortunate, it's just lack of alignment of culture. The term culture in business and in organizations like ours, what it translates to is here's how we do things around here. And so while the base that we're after has evolved, our board has certainly evolved to be a more diverse base. The culture, while it should evolve to a certain extent, it's really the same. The intent and the mission is the same. And so the lessons we've learned together is how to stay true to our mission while trying to accommodate all these people who are giving of their free will, but also knowing when it's time to say, it's time for us to go a different way because the mission is X and we can't get concerned with Y and Z at this point in time. I think that's the biggest thing because it's not easy. It's a lot easier, even though you can go get another job when you're paying somebody money. But when Cyversity also becomes a platform for people in leadership, it becomes that much harder to manage an organization.
Sure. I wanted to take a step back to a statement that Sharon was saying about having a chip on her shoulder, and that chip is based around the fact that she's, had to work her way through the process. What would you say to someone else from, let's just say, Sharon, from my neck of the woods where I grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn? I don't know if you know anything about that place, but that's where I grew up. What would you say, because that's where I spend my time training folks in cybersecurity, but what would you say to a person like that that's trying to get access to this industry? What would your words be to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say to them, number one, is have a hunger about what it is that you're trying to seek out. Obviously, the certifications, getting a sense, there's tons of companies who have rolled out some free certs. And so, yes, go after them, explore the industry, watch YouTube videos, watch Instagram, get in there and see what it's about. Networking is absolutely important. And I think it's hard, right? If you think you're, just, you're coming from whatever job or whatever industry you're in retail or you're customer service, and you don't know how to even get in there. You don't even know the lingo. So it's hard for you to network. Just come to an event, become a member of Cyversity. We're doing lots to just share, webinars and see practitioners so that you can find your fit. I think the other part is when you have an opportunity to speak with someone as a practitioner, just ask them about their story. It's not always pitching, hey, I want a job. I don't have any skills, but I want a job. Like, that's not really the right approach. Just ask them about where, their journey, and ask them for advice. And I think lastly is that when you have an opportunity, whatever it is, or when you have an opportunity to speak to someone or to get into a role or even, an internship or whatever it may be, have a desire to learn. Most of us as practitioners are looking for people who want to learn, who want to hustle, who want to absorb as much information and are teachable. We can teach them security if we have that kind of mindset. But anybody who just thinks all of a sudden that they're going to they're going to go from wherever they were and get their first job, and then tomorrow they want to be a CISO, like, that's not realistic. So you do have to put in the work. So I think if you're hungry, that you want to hustle for it, that's the advice that I would give. And always raise your hand. If somebody says, hey, who can do me, I'd like to try it. Give me a shot. I can take it. I can do the research. I'll figure part of it out. Help me with the rest, but always raise your hand. That's advice I would give.
That is such great advice, and it echoes what we've heard from other leaders or CISOs like yourself. Go seeking the problem. Go find the problem to solve the problem and address the problem. Just taking a step over again to this board conversation, and I was listening to you when you were talking about Spanish and biology and international affairs and studying war and conflict. There's likely, Sharon, to be disagreements and conflicts in a board environment, right? Mm-hmm. There's likely to be challenges and conflicts there. How do you intend to manage, address, and resolve conflict?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we do that every day, right? But in the context of the organization, I think Julian was spot on. We are dealing with volunteers. And so I think the first step is really leading with our mission. This is what we're trying to do. This is who we're trying to become from a vision standpoint. And then as we pick, either volunteers or board members, we had a really extensive board selection process, but just making sure that people have that passion, right? That their passion drives them more than the politics, I think, is really important. And so having that conversation and understanding, again, I really always talk about people's gifts and their superpowers, because I'm a firm believer that when you operate in your gift, that things just sparkle in a different kind of way. So the conversations that we have with the board members is, well, what's the thing? What's your thing? What's the area of your passion? What is your gift? And then my job is really, as the chair, is to sit back and be the GM of the thing, right? Just make opportunities for people to use their gifts and moving the organization forward. And so I think in dealing with conflict, you just have those conversations with people. You meet them where they are. It's not. I'm a pretty low drama person, so if anybody knows about me, I try. My goal is to be peaceful in most cases, and then just have those conversations about expectations and say, okay, if this is for you or if this isn't for you, it's okay. Just say so. I don't need to drag you. You don't need to drag me. Let's just move forward. But the passion is what really drives what we're trying to do, and making sure that that stays front and center, aligned with our mission.
Firstly, that's a great answer, right? Resolving human conflict has always been an interesting dynamic. A question to you about the microcosm or the ecosystem, meaning to me the chapters, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
coach. I mean, all of the things that at least all of the things that we see happening at national should be could be duplicated at the chapter level. What
Yeah.
do you see strategically for the chapters operationally to a reasonable degree for the chapters?
Yeah, the chapters are really special in that, we learned through COVID that, people went inside and perhaps they didn't come back out. And in order for us to be, again, back to the vision, relational at scale, you have to know people. And so community is so important to be able to find people who are in your area that you can partner with, bounce ideas off of, even volunteer with, and help grow other communities, other practitioners within cybersecurity. I think are absolutely critical. Our chapters, I think we now up to 10 or so across the US, help to keep our community together, also help to kind of build in their local communities, working with companies that may be local in those regions or in those locales, and making sure that they understand that, again, we can diversify cybersecurity right here. So we're really excited about all of the chapters. Many of them are in major cities, and we have some great leaders who have been pouring into their communities, pouring into our membership there, and helping the organization to grow.
Julian, I wanted to ask a question of you about milestones and benchmarks that have transpired, and what do you, as a former chair or even an emeritus chair, I'm just putting that out there. But as an emeritus chair, what do you see as benchmarks that measure the success of the founders, and as it transitions over to success of the next group that's coming behind you? What do you see as benchmarks and milestones?
So if we go all the way back to the beginning, when this was just an ideal in Devin's head that he put down in PowerPoint, right? The first benchmark was, the true sign of leadership is somebody's going to follow you. So, Devin he lights the torch. He comes to meet with guys like me. He brings Carlos along. I introduce him to Larry. Larry brings people along. I think Eric came through Larry, Permitter. Then you came through Eric. And we all solidified around the same core mission, though now it's evolved. So the first thing was, could we all get along and work together? And it is unfortunate what you said, but a lot of organizations, many of which started by minorities, if the personal and everybody who started ICMCP, now Cyversity, we were all industry forces in our own right, right? So there was lots of opportunity for ego to get in the way of the mission. And one of the things we committed to each other is we would call each other out if that happened, and we did. As you know, David, you were there a few times for it. But then the next mission was could we expand this to others? And at first for us, it was mentorship, awareness as education, and being able to provide scholarships. And we did a really good job of that. The issue came in is all of us were taxed. The big catalyst is when Devin took the job as CISO for the Fed, and then he disappeared because all of a sudden he had this big job, and the rest of us all had EDD, and so Devin was forced to make things happen, and we had to start looking to branch out if we were going to survive. And so that was the benchmark for back then, was just to get it to where it is today. Sharon, MK, others, some of which who aren't with us any longer, came in, and they really started to really branch us out more towards, it's about the community that we create about around us. It's about the partnerships that we can cultivate. Meaning, it's not like the ideal of Cyversity being the place that is the center of everything that's diverse, not just for the people who are trying to get access, but also to the organizations that are trying to provide an environment that welcome these people. It didn't happen overnight. Sharon and others came in with these ideals, and we've been working a hard time to try and cultivate them to the point where we can now communicate and live up to them in the way that we're doing. The greatest benchmark I see for Sharon and MK and the new board members now is, can we scale it? Can we get more chapters? Like I'm thinking about opening one in Tampa, since we've been trying to do it for a long time. Since I'm moving on into the sunset, whether I'm emeritus or just some little dude who doesn't have any room on his board anymore, there's still a lot that I can do there. And then the other thing is, and Sharon hit on this, is the generationality, generationality of our organization. There are many people who have benefited from Cyversity over the years. Now, one of the benefits for me is it's because it appeals to my philanthropic nature, right? To give back to others. I mean, Christ, I'm a former Baptist minister, son of a minister, and I married a full-time missionary who lives in Kenya half the year. So this whole giving back thing is kind of a part of my DNA. And so taking those of us who've been here for a while, providing a platform for us to do that in a way that's conducive to where she and the organization are going is also very important to me. And I'll be watching that keenly. For resources to be used.
Sharon, I mean, do you have anything to add to that
Yeah.
whole milestone conversation about benchmarks? What do you see in your vision?
Yeah, so there's three kind of key priorities and things that we're going to be keeping our eye out on. Number one, we want to make sure that we are driving value to our members. And that means that we want to be able to, as we attract and say security or cybersecurity can be for you, we want to help them, help curate their journeys for them. So do they take this training? What kind of skills and gifts do they have? How does that translate into roles? We want to, and then of course, then jobs and growth of their careers and helping to advocate where they are in terms of DE and I spaces. We want to do that. So that's one benchmark. The second benchmark, of course, is that we're a nonprofit organization, and we've put in a lot of really awesome back office features, external company to help us to, as MK says, punch above our weight, to do some really awesome things for our organization. And none of that's possible without funding. And so we want to continue to grow our development efforts and that funding, and having individuals recognize what we're doing and to invest and walk alongside us as we try to make these changes within the industry. That will be a second benchmark, is the development and funding. And then lastly, the last benchmark would be if we're sought after. It's that reputation that we're driving towards. Again, back into that vision statement, that to the vision of what we're trying to do, is that idea that we want to be top of mind. So when you're thinking about diversity in cyber, where do you go? We want to be sought after in all media outlets, to be sought after in conferences. We want to be sought after on how do you do this with other organizations or even within corporate spaces. We want to be top of mind. So those three core benchmarks will be areas that we're looking out for. Again, our member value, our ability to attract funding, retain funding, and to be sought after in that space.
It's remarkable, and it's powerful. I think this might be a sort of a tough question, but maybe not for you, for both of you who are, have tenure in the industry. How do we describe or provide ROI to our corporate sponsors and partners? I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, because the economic developers, which are corporations, are creating opportunities and business opportunities. they create it. They're going to benefit some way, but what is the actual ROI benefit to a corporation that gives us money to sustain our operational funding, our funding operations?
Yeah. I think that before we talk about just pure ROI, I find that a lot of companies don't really know what they're trying to do, right? So, they'll put some money out and say, okay, here's for some diversity stuff. In some cases, ROI might be if by investing with Cyversity, that means I have access to candidates, a new candidate pool that I haven't had access to before. Some organizations want to partner with us because they want to be a part of building new talent and developing new pipeline. And so our ability to put people through training, we've put hundreds through training over the last couple of years to just give them access and to help them get into security, into the cybersecurity space. When we can show that we're doing that, that might be their return. And then there may be others who are looking solely for, we put them through training and I want to hire those people. And I can do that at a potentially lower cost than using an external recruiter who's charging me 20% on the fees to find individuals. That might be their ROI. So I think part of that process that we're engaging in with organizations is to understand their why. What is it that they're interested in? What part about what is attractive to them as that is part of our mission, and what are they hoping to gain? That's what we're doing more of, is to help them understand what they're looking for, and then how do we align to that. And so, I would love to say it's like, and it's this number and this calculation here and there, but it really is dependent upon the motivation of those individuals who want to partner with us and how we can make these changes together.
And it sounds like it's also our responsibility to educate them.
Absolutely.
To a great degree.
Actually, excuse me, Sharon, to one huge thing is not just educate, but also provide an on-ramp for what it means. Because a lot of companies, to Sharon's point, all they know is, hey, we're getting graded on DEI. And while they may not have quotas, they're certainly stretching to bring in people of from diverse cultures, ethnic groups. And then all of a sudden, the diverse people get there and they go, well, they hired me, but this is really not a home for me. I don't feel comfortable here. There's not a platform for me to be able to speak from. They hired me because of this demographic, but they make no room for my demographic to have a voice. And so that's one of the things we can provide to organizations. But I can speak, selfishly from Rapid7's perspective. I mean, our perspective is twofold. We have a Black CEO, so having more people of diverse backgrounds in cybersecurity is very important to him. But what's also important to us is, and we're selfish about it, and it's what Sharon said. There's a scarcity of people who are coming into cybersecurity on the vendor side of the equation. Sharon goes, hey, there's not a lot of diverse people who come to sell to me. Well, we want to have more of those. And Cyversity is one of the avenues that people can learn about this and go into sales. We all know Darwin Salazar, right? Darwin is great. He comes to the organization of Cyversity. You know what he does? He's in product management for technology companies in the cybersecurity space. He's gone beyond the concept of being a practitioner, which is where he started, to deciding that he wants to enable practitioners by providing great technologies. And so the more people that we can help to learn about this, especially if we provide classes around what Rapid7 does with our technologies, or what Google does through the certificates that you can get, learning about Google Cloud and becoming a cyber professional. Well, those are all people who may not come work for me, but they're going to go work somewhere and they're going to know cyber and they're going to know my stuff. What a great win. It's awesome.
Before I go on, Julian, thanks very much for that, man. Whenever I speak to you, there's always something else that I got. I just got something else from you, and that's pretty typical of you. Before I move on to any other questions that I have, I wanted to ask anyone in the audience, if you have a question, and we've got about less than 10 minutes. If you have a question that you want to ask these folks, just put it in the chat. I'll read it out to them and they'll answer that question. And don't wait to ask the question. Go ahead and ask it so that we can get that question asked before we finish today. What I heard was what I heard from both of you today was pretty poignant in the fact that there's this member value, which is critical because, if anyone invests if they make an investment, there's something that they're probably looking to get out of it, whether it's giving or getting, whatever that is, it becomes part of their investment. And also finding the right partners that help us fund this organization, and also to be sort of that beacon at the top of the hill, that light in the bushes that everyone sees. What will you two say to corporations, right? When you're asking corporations, what do you say to corporations about Cyversity? How do you touch them, engage them? What is it that you're doing to help corporations see that they may want to look in this direction to make us part of their whole process? And that may be just too broad of a statement, but please try to answer it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first part is really to talk about the core of the problem and the reason why organizations really need to diversify in the first place is, at the end of the day, as security practitioners, we're here to protect the assets of the organization and to drive value to those organizations as well. And so when you think about protecting something, you need to have different perspectives. One person may think it's absolutely secure because you have a lock on it. Somebody may think it's not secure because of, it's a lock that someone could pick, right? So having these different kinds of perspectives is an imperative to be able to provide the kind of protection that an organization needs. A singular mindset means that it could be a single point of failure. And so at the core, you need to have different types of perspective. And when you look across your organization, the question becomes, do you have that different kind of perspective? And if not, then there's a higher likelihood that you're going to experience some type of security issue in the future. And so now you need to look for different kinds of perspectives to help you solve the evolving problems that we're seeing. So it's no longer, as we jump into this space around AI, generative AI and the like, there aren't concrete modalities on how to even approach the security in these cases that are firmly established. There are some organizations that are generating this kind of guidance, but you're going to need different kinds of practitioners. And so approaching the conversation with corporations about just their core need to diversify the view on security and making sure you have different perspectives to help to continue to provide that protection is, kind of job one. And then from there, then we can have the conversations about, well, how do you go about identifying diverse people? And it's not just, there's a lot of organizations who have done a phenomenal job of going directly to HBCUs, but it's not just a black and white issue here in the US for sure, right? It's about, neurodiversity. There's gender diversity. There's different socioeconomic type of diversity that's necessary. There's differences in perspectives between people who grew up in urban environments versus rural environments. All of that is necessary to provide perspective. And so that's where we can come in and help with the recruiting and, mindset, changing the mindset and the shift there, and then partnering with organizations to help grow in that space more.
Great. Thank you very much for that answer. There's 3 questions in the queue. I'm going to go from, I think it's Tara and Dio and Arlene. I'm going to start at the top with Tara. The question is, hello, everyone from Houston. Thank you all for sharing such valuable information. I'm new to the community and the industry, which is a bit frightening it's my voice inflection, due to all of the unknowns. But after this workshop, I feel much more at ease. I'm energized about joining this community and this industry. Thanks very much. I hope, Tara, you're a member of Cyversity. If you're not, I'll put my information in the chat so that you can contact us and I can help you find your way to become a Cyversity member. And since you're in Houston, we're developing a chapter in Houston as well. We've got the the state of Texas, and then we're breaking it down into chapters in Houston. Next question comes from DO. How is Cyversity expanding to Africa? We don't all jump in there at the
I
same
can answer
time.
that. Well, no, so I can speak a little to that. Uh, so diversity in Africa, as Sharon said, when you leave the United States, diversity takes on a whole different perspective. So in the United States, everything is primarily black, white, brown, yellow, and now gender obviously plays a big issue. When you go to the continent of Africa, uh, while each country is very different, I would tell you, primarily my belief, a personal belief, many of them have come to rely on financing from the nation state of China. And interesting enough, many of them are now being hacked more than they ever been before. My personal experience is with the nation of Kenya. And so Kenya now is one looking to other countries, namely the United States, to get cyber expertise, but primarily for helping to train their own people so they can be able to do it themselves. So diversity in Kenya, while it can be black and white, though most whites in Kenya are fairly affluent, it really comes through tribal backgrounds and those people who are rich and those people who are poor, the have and the have nots. And so through my wife's orphanage, which is in Kenya, I now have 3 entrepreneurs that I help fund their college education that are starting startups in cybersecurity. One of them is specifically working with the Ministry of Defense in Kenya, and we're about to do our next funding round for it. So it's very different, but a lot of it's driven. And of course, in Nigeria, they're constantly fighting the bad reputation that they have in the market for all of the fraud that occurs online through there. And so they have a very large contingent. But again, what would make it more diverse is for them to have more women in the field, specifically in the African nations. That's what they're very like.
And
And we've had some,
no, Sharon, please go.
yeah, we've had some initial conversations about, expansion opportunities into the continent of Africa. Those are still in very early days. Again, a lot of what we've been executing as part of this, refresh of the brand has been national in the U.S., but those conversations are still ongoing. So, Deo, more to come on that one.
Great. Arlene has asked the question just recently. I just recently got my CompTIA Security Plus certificate. I finished on MS in cybersecurity 2 years ago, but I am really struggling to get a position in cybersecurity. Who can I talk with? It just switched on me. Who can I talk to in order to get past this hump? I think someone PM answered a piece of a question, but please, to you both, what would you suggest as a response to Arlene?
Yeah, I think first is one opportunity specifically with Cyversity. If you're not already a Cyversity members, we have a mentorship program. And our mentorship program is great, actually. In some cases, there's smaller cohorts where they're doing some hands-on experience. Shout out to Mia, who's running our GRC boot camp.
Nice.
But there's also there's some one-on-one opportunities as well with the mentor to help you move down that pathway. I think the networking is also helpful, but let me just be honest and recognize that I know it's difficult to make that transition from into a full-time role. And I agree with the comment that was below. Sometimes you got to start in a space that's not directly in cybersecurity, but maybe adjacent. For me, I started in compliance. It just so happened to be in a security department at that time, but I started in compliance and found my way over into cybersecurity as a practitioner. And so I would encourage you to think about all of those spaces. The networking is absolutely important as well to help with that. And we're also doing more in cybersecurity or more in Cyversity over the next going into 2024 to help our members transition into job placement. So we have a board member who is phenomenal in this space that we're going to make some changes and help our members grow more there.
if I can be so bold as to suggest also that everything in cybersecurity is not technical. I mean, I started in this looking to be technical and just realized that my people power is people, dealing with people, speaking with people, empowering people, helping people. And so that's a big issue, just being a people manager. So you don't have to be technical 1000%, but just the field is so broad and open. Look, we're just about at time. I just wanted to give you both, to ask you both have some parting comments. Julian, you first, and then we'll close it out with you, Sharon.
So, David, thank you for this opportunity to pass the torch. Sharon, I absolutely love you. And I can't wait to see all the great things that you make happen for us as we move forward. Thank you so much for committing to doing this and making yourself available to the organization. And you can call and beat me up anytime like you normally do.
I will for sure take you up on that opportunity to beat you up at any point. But no, I think, Julian, I really thank you for this, taking me under your wing. And, there's so many things that I've learned about you that are subtle that you do well. And, I don't take that for granted. I'm very thankful for the opportunity and the trust that the founders have put into me, the trust that our board has in me as well to guide this organization. And, as an organization, to all of those people who are out there, who are members or who are thinking about membership, the hustle that we have as a leadership team, and the passion that we have, you'll hear from MK next, I guess, 2 months from now. Like, we're coming. And so if you need to know that passion is there, that we really are going to make that mark, we will. And so we want you to be a part of that journey. We want to help you in that journey. Again, as a person with a chip on her shoulder and a teenage girl who looks just like me, that hustle is absolutely there to make changes for a different world. And so, David, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for moderating this, and thank you for this Impact series, which has been a true blessing for our organization as well.
I love you. I love that. I love you.
Yeah.
No, really, Sharon, I swear to God, every time I talk to you, like, oh yeah, that's something new. And you could see it. I mean, you could just see it when I'm looking at you and talking to you. You could just see it right there, right behind your eyes. It's right there. And that's just my personal statement, because I always have and Julian, she's right. You do mentor without mentoring. She's definitely right. You do mentor without mentoring. So everyone, thanks very much, Julian, and thanks you very much, Sharon, for coming today and being a part of this conversation. We will continue. And like I said to Sharon earlier, Julian, if there's someone that we should be interviewing or someone you'd like to interview on this meeting, please bring them to the table. I do intend to invite.
I'm gonna have more time, so I'm gonna take you up on that.
Please, I just think it'll add more luster to the marble that we're creating and developing. So we're so happy to be a part of Cyversity. So happy to be a part of this organization and to work closely with you. And to everyone there that joined us, thank you for joining us. And I'm sure that the whole back office process is going to connect with you and ask you for your perspective on our conversation today. And I think that's it. I think I'll just leave it at that. Thanks very much, all. Have a great day.
Thank you all.